Okay. So in regards to my opponent's case, that I was saying that basically the laws are not the strongest point and that the laws can abuse people's rights. Okay, well, according to Rousseau, what man loses by social contract is natural liberty and unlimited rights to everything he tries to get and succeeds in getting. When he gains civil liberty and proprietorship over all his processes, we must clearly distinguish between natural liberty and civil liberty, which is limited by the general will and possession. This is exactly the same thing which I was saying in my third contention, where I was talking about justice derived from laws, and then I also described this in my second contention, where I talked about Thomas Hobbes, and how basically they give the power as a state, they choose to give the power to the Leviathan, and then the Leviathan reigns supreme and represents the will of all those who had alienated their rights to it. So as a state, we must assume that these people that are part of these sovereign states are willing to submit to the state and whatever the state wants to uphold. And thus, his whole card that he's saying that deontology is violated by the rights, by the state's freedoms, and the state's choosing to do something that he considers unjust or unmoral. That's actually false. First of all, he hasn't been able to prove that it's unjust. He's been able to prove that maybe it might be unmoral. The point of the matter is this case is not talking about morality, it's actually talking about justice, and more importantly that he's getting off basis of what the point of the debate is. Because the point of the debate is not debating whether democracy is the best rule for the world or whether we should spread democracy to every part of the world, but most importantly, what we're trying to debate is whether U.S. intervention is justified, and that's what I've been able to prove by talking about the sovereignty of the state, and defending the sovereignty of the state, and most importantly, doing it through the justice, which is the main point of value, which is what I'm actually debating. And so, what I'm stating is that by defending these rights of these nations, we can prove the most sovereignty for the state and uphold the initial characteristic which you must uphold, which is the deontology and the protection of the state in itself, so that then we can uphold universal international peace. This is more carried into his second contention, which he talks about the Shaw cards and how I did not reply to the Shaw cards, when in fact I did. That's what I was talking about. Correlation does not equal causation. And I was stating that democracy is not the best for the world. Even in his own case, he states that some reject the idea because it's Western in origin. Okay, that in itself stimulates the fact that this intervention is not going to cause peace, as he's stating, or that it's going to cause democracy and everything's just going to be butterflies and everything's going to be perfect because below we have democracy. No, that's not true, and he can't assume that either. He was unable to correlate this. He's just assuming, which is in itself, the assumption is in itself against deontology because he's assuming what will happen after the fact, and we in fact just have to judge the action by what it is now. In itself, the act of violating sovereignty is something that is rejected, and he, in his own case, states it by saying that some reject the idea because it is Western in origin. And so these people will reject the idea of having democracy imposed upon them, and in itself, that's an unjust action. He has no way to prove that it has justice providing this. He's just been able to prove that democracy can be spread, and democracy should be spread according to his value of morality. But in itself, once again, that's taken off basis of the point of the debate, which is to debate the justice of it all. And so the justice of intervening, he's been unable to test, and he's been unable to defend how his case upholds it more so than mine. Moreover, he talks about how we cannot my case violates deontology, and I've already proven that that's incorrect because I've proven how through Rousseau both defends it and also the Leviathan rejects the fact that this does not violate deontology. In fact, it actually preserves it because it allows each state to have their sovereignty, which is what must be upheld above all things because the people choose to submit themselves to the government. Furthermore, he talks about his first contention, which is the spread of democratic ideals, and I've already also debated this by stating the fact that we cannot state that spread of democratic ideals is the best thing for the international community, besides the fact that he has Shaw cards and Sean Jones or whatever, who describes that this is positive. That's just one person's opinion, but he has no philosophical basis, which is the whole purpose of this round, to debate philosophy at all. And he has not been able to prove one philosopher who he brings into this case who can define that what he's doing is the best for our nation. And these philosophers are actually the ones that cause everything that we're debating today, and they're the ones that affect all the political theories that we in fact instill upon our nations and upon our states and our international community. And so the best way to define this case is by bringing philosophy. He has been unable to do so. So my philosophy, which I've been strongly advocating, and I have even defined justice unlike he has, must carry over this case and must be preserved above his. Also, he's saying that by intervening and joining wars, we are going to secure the rights for the people, and we need to support we need to bring more westernization, and we need to stop authoritarian regimes, when in fact, this is false. Even his own card rejects it. The fact is, people that he brings into to play, the fact that they're going to reject these ideals just because they're Western in origin. And so he's failing to acknowledge the fact that there is going to be a clash of ideals, and we cannot impose our ideals upon others and say that they're going to reign supreme because they have more justice, not because they have more justice, because they're considered more moral, because we cannot dictate what is their morality, as they've already subscribed to the system with which they're under, and the system which they believe to be their sovereignty in their state. And so we cannot go in and interfere and expect our our morality to be above theirs, but in fact we can only test the justice of the situation. The justice of the situation is as defined by Aristotle, that we cannot defy their laws as they have prescribed them to be, and we cannot go in and state that our sense of morality is greater than theirs. Furthermore, going on to my fairness card, which is also the second part of justice, he did not refute this point at all, which is basically stating that the results are not going to be equal. The results of intervention are not going to be equal to the fact that the country is losing their sovereignty, and in itself it's not proving fairness, and thus it's not just, and that's the main argument of the debate, and he did not debate this point, so that carries. Also, in regards to my first contention, I've already been proved how deontology is linked to the rights of each state, and how we must. And I've proven through various international doctrines, unlike he has, that the sovereign have no force other than legislative power, and they act only by means of the laws. That's stating Rousseau, and then in violation of international laws, talking about international doctrines and how we have already established that we cannot disregard the political sovereignty of each state. Also, in talking about sovereignty, he just said that it doesn't cause anarchy for my second intention, but in fact I've already proven that it does cause anarchy, as I stated with Leviathan, and how we have to represent the will of all, or else we're going to defy laws of international commons, and we're going to create anarchy across the world. I already did one negation. Thank you.
I want to 50 rounds, so I'll just take that.